Welcome to the Alpha Concepts podcast, where we'll talk about everything going on in the gun culture, from training to gear and gun rights advocacy. Hi, I'm your host, Thomas Krall, and I will be with you on this adventure that we're going on today. And today we're going to talk about youth training, getting the kids involved in the shooting sports. And I have with me Phil Oelkers. And Phil does a lot of youth training with the Boy Scouts and some other organizations. Phil, thanks for being on today's show.
Hey, thanks for letting me come on.
My pleasure, man. I think it's important that, my opinion is we get, everyone should have a base level of firearm training, if not anything else besides just some basic safety, because, guns are out there, right? And kids can come across guns. When I was 13, about 13, give or take, my buddy came out of his dad's bedroom playing with his dad's gun. And, my first instinct was to run my ass home, and that's exactly what I did. And I think, personally speaking, that firearm training should be mandatory curriculum in schools. Like I said, at least a very basic baseline level of training. And obviously that's not happening for political reasons mostly, but then in comes you, and you're doing a great job teaching, like I said, Boy Scouts. What other organizations are you working with?
We do a little bit with Pheasants Forever. In theory, the Girl Scouts could come out. Some other instructors do some work with Girl Scouts. The 4-H has a big shooting sports program.
Great. And you doing mostly rifle, I would imagine?
No, Boy Scouts, we can actually do, it's graduated, starting with our little guys, Cub Scouts. They use BB guns. Our Webelos could move up to pellet guns. Once they get into the actual scouting, we can do rifle, shotgun, and pistol. We also do a take on 3-gun or on cowboy action. And when they get into our Venture or our Explorer program, which is high school age, they can essentially shoot anything that's not an NFA item.
That's great. I mean, getting that. My experience was I went to a summer camp, and I was first off, let me back up. My grandfather had a BB gun, which I would steal and shoot every time he took his afternoon nap when I was over there. I had absolutely no training whatsoever. I did not know what I was doing. My brother and I would do the most stupid stuff. And one time I remember shooting the railing point blank. I pumped that BB gun up as many times as I could, and 4 or 5 inches away from a railing, I thought for sure that BB was going to go embed into the railing. It bounced back and hit me square dead center in the forehead. I could have lost an eye so easily. And that's part of the reason I think that youth firearm safety is important, because, kids are knuckleheads. I certainly was. And then I went to summer camp. My parents, would send us off to summer camp for a week or two. And one of the summer camps we went to, everyone was shooting BB guns. Very baseline level of don't point it at anyone, and, that sort of thing. Not really the force safety rules or any official training. But I got to shoot a 22 because, I was partnered. Everyone was partnered up, and I happened to get partnered up with the counselor, and he was able to shoot a 22, so I was able to shoot the 22. And I remember no ear protection. I fired one round, and I was like, done. I think I fired 2 more rounds after that. And, really, 22 doesn't have a lot of recoil, doesn't have a lot of flash, isn't very loud, but it's loud enough when you're a little kid. So I never really had that proper baseline level of firearm training until, as an adult, I started getting reinterested in guns and self-defense primarily, and felt it very important to know what I was doing. And I had to seek out that training on my own. And the fact that I still have 2 eyes, like I said, is an amazing thing. And I think what you're doing, training the youth, how to be safe, how to operate the firearm, giving them that respect. I believe it gives that baseline respect for firearms, gives children also a baseline discipline that they can build off of in all aspects of their life. I think you can speak to that more than me, but I think it's an awesome thing that you're doing for those reasons.
Thank you. Yeah, we start our safety briefings before every session, and especially with our scout age, our Boy Scout age and older youth, we tell them, look, these are not just range rules. These rules will keep you safe when you take and you're like for your case where your idiot buddy brings out his dad's new Glock and wants to show it to you. If you keep it pointed in a safe direction and you know what a safe direction is, you keep your finger off the trigger and you don't load it, nothing bad is going to happen with that. Because realistically, NRA had the don't touch, leave the area, tell an adult, and we teach that to our Cub Scout age boys or kids now, and that's good. But once they get up to that junior high age, if their buddy brings out a gun, are they going to stop, not touch, and leave the area, tell the adult? No, they're going to look at it. So if we teach them how to safely do that, we can manage that situation.
What got you involved with youth training? Now, obviously, you do other classes. You're teaching concealed carry, NRA personal protection, etc. with adults. But what got you into the youth training specifically?
My oldest son was in the Boy Scouts. My initial training with shooting was in the Boy Scouts, and they had this range that had 16 positions to shoot, and they only had 8 guys out there shooting. And I'm like, well, why aren't you using all of them? And they're like, well, we can't. We don't have the staff. NRA is really staff heavy on our shooting sports, as it should be. But they're like, we only have enough staff to use 8 of the rifles instead of 16. So, became a rifle instructor and then became a shotgun instructor and kind of all downhill from there.
Downhill. So how many classes on average are you training these kids per year? Actually, let me back up. What is the instructor to student ratio on these kids' classes?
So when we take and do rifle, you need to have 1 instructor and 1 NRA certified RSO per 8 shooters. When we do shotgun, you have to have 1 RSO per 5 shooters, and it's 1-on-1 instructor to shooter ratio. When you do handguns, it's 1 instructor for 2 students and 1 RSO per 8.
And how many classes on average are you doing a year with the kids?
So our council does, we call them shooting sport weekends, which is actually a day. We do 3 in the spring, 3 in the fall, and then we run 6 to 8 weeks of summer camp during the year where we actually have paid staff that will do instruction for that during summer camp. Also, if a unit just wants to arrange for staff to come out to the range, we can do that as well. But it's about 6 a year, and and we do rifle and shotgun at the same time.
Now, are there classes? I'm calling them classes, events, whatever words nomenclature you want to use. Are these in high demand? Is there a lot of parents trying to get their kids involved, and you need more staff, or is it 6 a year is about what the interest is?
Oh, we can always use more staff. We have more people wanting to shoot than we have spots to do it. If we had more, we're blessed at Camp Ingersoll, which is out near London Mills or Galesburg, roughly. We have a full trap range. We have a 16-point rifle range, and we could do more students than we could. Right now, COVID's got us kind of cut down that we have to space people out a little more, so that's taking a little stress off of our staff. But we could probably do more shooting sports weekends if we had staff to do it.
Are these weekends open to the public, or are they typically just for a troop or a group or whatever?
They are. The shooting sports weekends are just for a group, for a troop, or a crew is what they call an older bunch. Now, if another youth organization wanted to come in, they can use our camp. We could make arrangements that they could use our range, but typically be youth groups, but if a church group wanted to come in, we could make arrangements to let them shoot.
And that sounds great. I mean, because obviously ranges where I'm at up in Chicago area, there's very few, and obviously a lot of restrictions. Most of them are indoor. I've got to drive over an hour if I want to get to an outdoor range, and then there's still very few. And you're in a more rural environment, so I'm assuming that the ranges are more plentiful. But at the same point in time, obviously, you want a safe range with a proper berm and all of that, which isn't always the case. I've been invited to do training classes on private land many times, and the first question is, show me your berm. Give me a picture or video of your berm, and it's almost always a joke. I've even had people say, "Oh no, we just shoot into the cornfield." And
Yeah.
you can keep shooting into the cornfield, but I won't be there until you erect a berm. So, it's great that you're opening up your facility to other groups, because I'm sure even though they're more plentiful down there where you're at, it's still not like like liquor stores in the city on every corner.
Yeah. And we're very blessed. The NRA Foundation has probably given us $20,000 or so over the past maybe 10 years, rifles and shotguns. They built a facility that we can do archery, where the shooters are under a covered barn type situation instead of standing out in the hot sun. So yeah, we have a beautiful facility that we can shoot on.
So when you're working with a child, it's their first time shooting. What's the typical reaction?
Oh, they love it. And the thing, sometimes we'll get scoutmasters who come and talk to us and say, we know we're shooting and we let Johnny come. But, we're not sure about Johnny. Never have trouble with Johnny. Once you tell them, we start our safety briefing with, hey, the scout, 2 points of the scout law: trustworthy and obedient. Because you're scouts, you'll be trustworthy and obedient. We can give you tools that you can kill somebody with. And then we give them the rules, we tell them how to do it, and we have no trouble. And just the look on these kids' faces when they do it, especially when you get them out on the shotgun range. And we got some little guys right there. They're maybe 80 pounds. We give them that 410, and they break that first bird, and they generally will, in the first 5 shots, they'll hit one bird. And they are so excited. And it's just so cool to see.
Yeah, I remember when I took my daughter shooting the first time. We were shooting handgun, and I told her just aim for that center X, blah blah blah, and she was always close. She was around it, and the first shot that hit the X, it was like, oh, I hit it, So yeah, absolutely, I can totally appreciate and understand the excitement that they have when they've accomplished that goal and realize that they can do something. It's actually not that difficult to do.
Yeah, and I'm really lucky that I've got some staff that works with me, and we kind of call them the graybeards. These guys have been around scouting since I was a little guy, and these guys really know how to teach little people or young adults how to shoot, because it's different than teaching adults.
Absolutely. There's a whole different skill set in teaching children. And I'll be 100% honest. I do okay, but I'm definitely better with adults than I am with children. And again, I do okay, just not like, but I see people that can kind of talk at their level a little bit better than I can. And it is a whole different set of skill. You can have all the fundamentals, right? And that doesn't make you a good instructor to children or adults. You have to be able to transfer that knowledge to them in a meaningful way that they can understand, that's at their level. And that is a skill all unto itself. So there's absolutely a difference teaching children versus adults.
And kids, I mean, they'll tell you, if you try and explain something and it doesn't work, they'll tell you. And if you can teach kids, it really has helped my instructing of adults by working with the youth. And
I heard it once said that if you can't explain it to a 6-year-old child, you don't understand it yourself.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, there's it's like anything. Like I said, there's a separate set of skills, and children learn a different way than adults learn, and they have their own language, which is always evolving and changing. And you have to sort of understand how they communicate with one another, so that you can communicate with them, and then like I said, transfer that knowledge and make sure that what they're doing is in a safe manner, making sure they can achieve their goals, so you can build their confidence. Like you said, they hit that clay and their face lights up, um, and it's just uphill from there as far as the skills and the progression. And not to get super political, but I believe that that's part of the reason why the forces who are trying to restrict guns, take guns away, basically I call them civilian disarmament advocates. I believe that that's why they try to demonize and shun children with guns, because they know that if you can get a child involved in the gun culture, then they are more likely to be an adult involved in the gun culture. And so if they can kind of nip it in the bud early, so to speak, I think that, I'm trying to put myself in their position and figure out what their strategy is. Why do they demonize children with guns? And, the kid in Florida with the Pop Tart, and, now with this homeschooling, and, calling the cops, the teacher calling the cops on the kids with the BB gun. And, I just truly believe it's so that they can kind of turn kids off to firearms, so that they don't grow up to be adult gun owners. That's a personal opinion. I could be wrong, but I believe that's probably spot on. What are your thoughts?
I think you're absolutely right. And when we get kids, we've got some inner city troops that have come out, and when we do our cowboy action program, we shoot. We have 22 revolvers, 22 lever action rifles, and a double barrel 20 gauge shotgun, and we shoot some steel targets. And it's for older. It's for 14 years and older, and just the look on their faces when you hand them like a real handgun, and they're like, "This isn't evil," and we've always been told these are bad, but it just I point it and it goes bang, and but it doesn't do anything on its own. Exactly, and then they learn that it is fun.
And that's it. I mean, it's fun. It's what I call the range effect, as far as with adults, and I'm sure it applies to children as well. Um, if you can put a safe firearm in someone's hands, and then bring them, obviously to the range, and eye protection, ear protection, start with 22s, just like you said, because you don't want to put a 12 gauge shotgun in a 100-pound kid's shoulder. That's child abuse. And but build them up, build up their confidence, starting with something small, give them something a little bit bigger, and I think that that's like I said, the range effect. It turns a lot of people who have a negative opinion of the firearm into people who now have a positive opinion of the firearm, because people fear what they don't understand. And if they've been constantly told, as you said, these are bad, don't touch guns, they're bad, they're evil, and now you realize this is just a rock, basically. It sits there until I tell it to do something. It needs my interface. And if I'm a good person, then the gun's going to be used for good purposes. And if I'm a bad person, then the gun's going to be used for bad purposes. And you just have to squeeze off a few rounds to realize that. That's just ultimately the way it is for any age.
Yeah, and we had a mother was out with a troop of young ladies came out this weekend, and we were shooting 22s, and she'd never shot anything before.
The mother.
And the mother had. And she's like, "Oh, this is pretty neat." And one of the things we do is, after we shoot groups for a little while, and the ones that are getting good groups, we put a playing card down there at 50 feet. And we kind of bend it so it's pointing to you, and they try and cut the card in half. And she's like, "Oh, I'll never be able to do that." And the look on her face when she cut that card in half. And it's not, it's not as hard as it sounds. It's more a trick, but it is really cool when you do it. She's like, "Man, I'd never touched guns. I didn't like guns. Like, this is really kind of cool." I think maybe my daughter and I will. They're from Bloomington. We might go down to CI Sports and see if they have a class or something for us. So,
What's your thoughts on? Do you know anything about Appleseed?
yes, we.
What are your thoughts on that organization?
I like them. I mean, they are now Boy Scouts. We have some rules, and basically all the semi-automatics and the way they do things is fairly far outside our rules. However, I will say that there are a lot of groups of young men that all happen to be in the same Boy Scout troop that will show up at an Appleseeds event. I enjoyed it a couple times. I did it. I think they do really good work. I don't know how if I like it for a beginners. I think they're more of an intermediate course, right? Because they say, well, we teach through a fire hose, and I think they do maybe a little more than a beginner can handle, or than some beginners can handle. But on the end, I enjoyed going to them, and I think they do a great job for what they do.
I think as far as beginners go, they had because they have like an age limit of 9, I believe it is, right? Something like that. And I could be wrong. If anyone is listening wants to correct me with a comment, that's great. I think it's like 9 years old or something. They had a child who was younger than 9, and he was shooting a 10-22 off of a bipod. And let me tell you, he was absolutely killing it. He wasn't doing any of the sling work, and he was shooting from some of the positions, not all the positions. Now, of course, because he was quote unquote cheating, that he couldn't earn a rifleman badge, but still, he was pretty dead on accurate with that 10-22, and just to give them that experience and on obviously all those different shooting positions. And I mean, I'm assuming you're doing the Boy Scout classes and whatnot for free. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean through the council, they there's basically they're out there camping. They pay a small fee to use the rifles. I think it's like $5, and then there's a little bit for ammunition. But I mean,
right,
it's pretty minimal.
Right, you're basically just trying to break even on the ammo and whatnot. And Appleseed is very
Exactly.
similar. Their classes are like $60 or $80 for a 2-day class. Obviously, you bring your own ammo, but most people shoot 22, and that's even now in today's market, $9 for 1,000 rounds of high velocity. So it's still not gonna. I'm sorry, not 1,000, 100 rounds of high velocity. So it's still not gonna completely break the bank. It's a good way to get kids and even adults training. Whenever I've done it with my 223 AR-15. But obviously, the 22 long rifle has some advantages because you're only shooting 25 yards. It's hard to miss the target at that distance.
Exactly. Yeah, and we shoot, our 22s, we shoot at 50 feet. And kind of their goal is to, merit badge is to cover a group that can be covered with a quarter at 20 or at 50 feet. So it's not super hard, but it takes, you have to have some decent fundamentals. Now, most of ours, it's also really funny. We had a guy that never shot before, huge kid. He was probably 16 years old. He's about 6'4" and about 250 pounds.
Wow.
Just a monster. And his first group, he was like all over the target. I mean, literally all over. And one of my instructors sat down with him and helped him. He's getting better, and he's getting better. And I see him coming back up the range with his target, and his head's all down, and he's like, I'm like, DeAndre, what's going on, man? He's like, oh man, I only hit it 3 times. And he shows me his target, and he's got this tiny little group.
So basically, he was putting holes through holes.
Yeah, he had a group smaller than your pinky, man. It's like they turned the target over and say, no, that little cluster there, that's 3. You put basically 5 bullets into one hole. Then what I didn't realize is he was going to do a chest bump on me. He was so excited, and he about knocked me into the next county, which very much amused the rest of his troop. That was a really cool experience. But he's like, man, I missed them all. Oh, dude, you're doing well.
Now, tell me, it's obviously not all peaches and cream, right? Have you had any bad experiences?
Not really. I think, the one of the worst experiences we had is sometimes we get some other graybeards out there that These guys, they might be NRA instructors, especially NRA shotgun instructors. And they saw that we had 410s, and this guy got kind of all up in my face. It's like, you can't let them try and shoot those 410s. A 410 is an expert's gun.
A 410 is an expert's gun?
I was like, well, sir, you know what? You're absolutely right. From 16-yard line and back, the 410 is how, I mean, in trap shooting, kind of the way they separate the men from the boys is who can break it with a 410 at, 16, 20, 25 yards, right? But when we shoot right next to the house, and we've got those New England firearms, they got super heavy buttstock, so the barrel just points perfectly up in the air for them. So getting some of these guys to, and in the NRA shotgun instructor thing, they say you should only teach with 20 and 12 gauge. You shouldn't teach beginners with 410s because they won't hit anything and they'll get frustrated. And I'm like, you watch these guys, and I'll bet you this first kid up there, he's going to break 1 out of 5 birds at least. And he broke one, and he was so excited. But yeah, the one of the I guess the thing, people that know less than they think they know can sometimes be a challenge.
I think that goes back to the teaching adults versus teaching children. Obviously, you've got a different set of rules, not necessarily rules, but your stages, so to speak, are set differently. So
Exactly.
the rule that applies to adults that you said 16 yards obviously doesn't apply when you're 3 yards away.
Exactly.
Everyone's got to ease into their role. If you're new to any type of shooting, definitely it's better to take a back seat and watch. It's like they said, you've got two ears and one mouth. You should listen twice as much as you speak.
Exactly. But no, we really we're very blessed with our facility. Maybe occasionally we've actually, back in the ammo scare, 7-8 years ago, when you couldn't get 22 to save your life, we got some 22 ammo that about 1 in 5 wouldn't go off, and that got really frustrating for the guys.
Well, you just tell them that we're practicing malfunction clearance.
Yeah, but we kind of go through a whole different thing. It's like, so you got to wait 30 seconds, and you got to call somebody over, and they put a little thing on it, open it up in case it blows up. I don't know how that would ever happen, but that's kind of the way we got to do it. It really kind of slows down the thing when you're getting that many malfunctions.
Right. Of course, if you're doing a defensive training, which is kind of my cup of tea, you're just going to, with a pistol, tap rack and assess. So there's no big deal. But yeah, if you're doing the whole wait 30 seconds because it might be a hang fire and then blah, blah, blah. Yeah, sure. That's going to slow things down. And I can understand getting frustrated because the last Appleseed I went to, I was having nothing but problems with my rifle. And that was so frustrating for me. It was not an enjoyable experience because of the rifle.
Yeah, no, but to the point, when you say defensive shooting, our older young adults, when they get into the like if they're a law enforcement explorer post or a Sea Scout ship, I guess they call them, they actually shoot a pistol qualification with a 9mm that's the equivalent to what a police department or the military might shoot.
At what age is that?
That starts at 14, high school, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason kids can't shoot 9mm. My daughter shoots my 9mm. She has her own 380, as does my son, but she can shoot my 9mm just fine. It's obvious. Yeah, you know what? Listen, the size, the weight, et cetera, but there's no reason why teenagers can't handle the recoil of a 9mm. It's not like it's a 10mm or something like that.
I mean, and teenagers, some of them are 6'4" and 270 pounds.
As you said.
There's some big guys out there.
So you mentioned you can use more staff, right? How does someone who wants to get involved with training the kids in the manner that you do, how do they get involved doing that? What's the process that they need to go through?
So probably the easiest way, if you want to help and help out any local scout council, is become an NRA range safety officer. It's a one-day course. Honestly, probably not the best course that the NRA has to offer, but you can punch that ticket in a day. We run them at our council uh, every couple of years, and we charge like $50 for it. I think the going rate out there is about $100 if you're going to go to sort of a commercial guy that's doing it, and that will let you help out on the rifle range or the shotgun range or pistol if your council is running a pistol program. And that's kind of the easiest way to get in and get involved. And then the next step would then to become a certified rifle, shotgun, or pistol instructor. And then that's a much more involved, pretty much kills an entire weekend.
And again, that would be an NRA thing, correct?
Correct. We do, or NRA coaching if you can find an NRA coach school for shotgun or rifle or pistol. And then, but that's a much bigger commitment. And I guess what NRA instructor courses are probably $300 or so right now.
Sure, it all depends. It all depends where you're going and what area of the country you're in. Obviously, up by me, it's going to cost more than it would down by you.
Yeah, and then you just take and once you're certified, you take and contact your Boy Scout council and say, hey, get me in touch with your shooting sports committee. I'd like to help out. So we're always kind of looking out for people willing to help. You'll have to fill out a Boy Scout volunteer form. They do a little background check on you. You do a little youth protection training, which kind of just goes through all the things you can't do around children, which isn't bad. And then you can help out.
So there's a process, but it's not like it's extremely prohibitive either in cost or time. I mean, if you've got the interest, it's very doable.
Yeah, you can definitely do it. Getting that NRA, and sometimes they'll run special courses for NRA instructors. We're trying to talk with a training counselor that he might do a deal where we'd hold your the money that you pay for your instructor course kind of in escrow, and every time you come back to help us out and volunteer, we'll give you some of that back. So after enough of helping out, you basically get your
earn
course
your keep, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a great way to do it. I mean, it works in private industry. Why wouldn't it work in charity, so to speak?
Exactly.
What else do you have going on besides just the youth training?
That's it. I have a little training that I do on my own out here, but pretty much more busy than I can be. Can't find ammo to train with anymore, so.
Well, you can find it. You just have to be prepared to pay like 5, 6, 7 times the cost of what it was in January.
Yeah, exactly. And then, but no, I really enjoy the youth training. Is just a lot of fun. There's some really great kids out there. Some of these girls, these teenage girls, you get them out on the shotgun range, and they are deadly. They are, because a guy he'll miss a bird, and he gets all flustered, right? Girl misses one, she shakes it off and just nails that next one and keeps on going.
I'll tell you what, at a beginner stage, I think that, truthfully, I think kids are better than adults. They absorb the information better. I think also females are better beginners than males, and I think that has a lot to do with ego and bad habits.
Oh, exactly.
Even little boys have an ego. Let's face it, it's the truth. And they see, they get the bad habits because they're into the guns, right? And so they see the TV and the video games and all that stuff, and it is not anything you want to be emulating. It's, usually wrong. And so you have to untrain some bad habits. They might not even if they've never shot before, they've seen, they've paid attention to, improper coaching from media. And so now it's something you have to unlearn them before you can relearn them.
Yeah, no, we really have a good time with it. And if you can start them out, some of them, they like, oh, this won't be very much fun. And once they start shooting, then we start trying to cut that card in half. that really hooks them. And especially, we make them, if you want it to count as a full cut, it's got to be the full length of the card. So if you cut just like the first half and your bullet kind of moves off, or you kind of catch it halfway down the card, like, nope, doesn't cut. It's got to be all the way down. But then whenever they do it, then we take their picture, and they just have some,
Sure.
have a lot with that.
It's always nice when you set a goal and you accomplish it. It gives a sense of satisfaction no matter what that goal is.
Exactly. And we have some work through, the NRA has that marksmanship qualification program. We had a young man just this last fall did distinguished expert in shotgun. And his mom was telling me he'd gone through 1,200 rounds of ammunition before he finally got that last bit done.
Wow.
Yeah.
He was determined. That's good. That's a kid that's going to go somewhere in life.
Yeah, and they're a venture crew that what they do. Venture crews are units in scouting that kind of specialize in one thing, and they specialize in shooting sports. So they do nothing but shoot. They're kicking around the idea of trying to do a IDPA team or like scholastic shooting sports, and they're trying to figure out the ins and outs of doing that. That'll be a lot of fun for them.
Oh yeah, I'm sure and let's look at it this way: there are children of every age out there actually competing in legit 3-gun competitions and killing it.
Oh yeah, the big high school, the Scholastic Shotgun Foundation that has a big. They have 4th graders out there competing in shooting a full round of trap in 4th grade. Amazing.
All right, Phil. I'm coming up with ideas. What else do you want to talk about?
If folks want to take it and help out, it's really worth your time and your cash to help out. It is kind of tough to tell somebody, hey, if you want to volunteer, you got to spend $400 or $500 out to help us volunteer. But it's definitely worth your time. And, someday I'm gonna have to bite the bullet and become a NRA training counselor, and maybe see if I can't find a sugar daddy or two around here that'll. We've got some pretty generous folks around here that might sponsor some classes where we could, take known scouting volunteers and move them into the shooting sports side of the program.
And if you're considering it, think about it from a selfish point of view. These kids are going to grow up to be voters. Don't you want them to be gun voters? I mean, it just makes sense. You're investing in not only their future, but your future as well. Someone's got to carry the torch, and that is the next generation.
Yeah. But kids just love shooting. There's very, very few that come away not enjoying it. Some of them might be, especially shotgun, they might be shaking like a leaf before they put that first shot off. But once they realize that, okay, it's loud, but it's not bad. And we have really good these guys that work with me. They really know how to make sure a student is really ready to take that first shot. They've got a decent position where the gun's just not going to bang them. They've got a good grip on it. They've got a good shoulder mount and a good cheek weld on it, so it doesn't beat them up too badly.
And that shoulder mount is important, because if it's you got a gap there, it's going to kick back and smack him in the shoulder. Whereas if it's firmly placed into the shoulder pocket, then you barely feel it.
Exactly. And just getting them when they're scared to lean into it instead of lean away from it. These guys, I really learned a lot from these older guys. That I thought I'd come out and I knew a lot about teaching and such. And these guys that had been doing it for 10, 12, 15 years really know a lot of, and you can really learn a lot from them if you will take the time to do it.
All right. Well, anything else you want to add before we wrap up today's episode?
No, thank you very much for letting me on and talk about it.
I appreciate the work that you're doing. Like I said, training up the next generation. I appreciate that you're trying to get other people active and involved to do the same thing. I think that's incredibly important. We have to invest in the youth to guarantee, our way of life and the continuity of the gun culture. So, I mean, it's an awesome thing that you're doing. Both, teaching those kids the respect and the discipline. But also, like I said, introducing more and more people into the gun culture. We're all going to benefit for that. So I'm going to wrap up today's episode. I want to thank Phil. I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank everybody for listening. Stay tuned, everybody, to future podcasts. Don't forget to subscribe if you enjoyed this podcast. And as always, be armed, be trained, and be alpha.